In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Twisted Tea and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Better Brands Incorporated. Know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Twisted Tea's original hard iced tea in hand. It's important to remember drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and your friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Twisted Tea salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com. Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome back to Trilogy Outdoors, and this week's episode, we're going to talk about something that I like to do, Stephen. As you give me that laugh, I knew it was coming. We are going to talk kingfishing this week. We got a lot of kingfishing to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. You went back out and went down and hung out with the megalodons down there and found some more meg teeth and some other stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, you're sitting in front of it. Yeah, I've stretched out a couple. We ended up with 130 plus megalodon teeth. Just incredible dive the other day.
Excuse me while I pick my jaw up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make an impact on you until you hold one in your hands and you think about, God, it's been 10 million years.
Think about that. 10 million years.
That thing's been laying on the bottom. And that one's a little bigger than 6 inches. It's, bigger than, it's about the size of your hand, I guess, unless you got small hands.
That's 10 inches.
Yeah. That's what you say.
That's 10 inches.
If that's what you say.
That's 10 inches. Well, I'll tell you what, I've lined up some great guests today. And actually, part of this show, I sat down myself. You were out in Colorado. I sat down myself with another one of the most successful teams in king mackerel fishing here in the Southeast. Team Keeping It Real Quiet. I like to say that because that's the truth about Jared. I call him Team Keeping It Real Quiet because you can never get Jared to talk to you on the radio. That's why. But we are, I sat down with him and the Gallops and had a good discussion, talked about kingfishing. And our other guests are Team Long Run, good friend of ours and a Trilogy Outdoors listener, Lucas Williams, who I get the pleasure of hunting with, fishing with, and doing a lot with, and his partner, Captain Robbie Remsen, who is a king mackerel guru who wakes up thinking king mackerel, goes to sleep thinking king mackerel, probably sleeps thinking about king mackerel. But we're going to have a great time today. And I'll tell you what, first, let's go and my little interview with Keeping It Real and check that out, and we'll come back right on the other side of that and join Team Long Run. I'll tell you what, I've set up the old Tascam Mixcast Trilogy podcaster, and I'm sitting with three infamous names in kingfishing in South Carolina and North Carolina and probably the Southeast, and sitting with the Gallops and sitting with Jared or Daryl over here, known as Team Keeping It Real, in case for those that don't know. These guys have won, probably combined between the three of them, almost in excess of $800,000 if you start adding it up that way.
I would say so, pretty close.
I mean, y'all all started early.
We did, yes.
You Gallup boys started
mid-90s.
Young in life.
We started on an 18.5-foot Wahoo when we were 15 years old, spending our weekly pay on king mackerel tournaments.
Or wait a minute now, also, you told me yesterday a story about your dad told you, boys, if y'all want deer stands up, do it yourself.
That was when we were probably 12. We thank God we lived across the street from the hunting club, and we 2 days before the hunting season, we were like, Dad, it's time to get going here. He's like, nope, y'all on your own. Y'all can drive, have at it.
Well, for any of you fish heads that are listening, these are 2 of the triplets, and that's a rare thing. How rare are triplets? Help me out with that. I'm sure y'all have to.
Well, we're identical, and I used to know the number, but it was like
y'all are 3 all identical, by the way.
It was
you're a nightmare for somebody that doesn't hang out with you all the time.
It was the odds were better for us, or winning the lottery, than it was for us at one time. I don't know what it is anymore, but it's pretty rare.
Wow. Well, I know I fished beside you guys this week. Y'all
1 in 200 million births.
Good God. That is crazy.
I think the chances of us hitting the lottery are probably out the door.
Yeah, I would wonder too. Like even at the 1 in 200 million or whatever of 3, I wonder how often 3 survive.
That's a good question.
But I'm sure in this day and age, with the progress that we have made in medicine, obviously probably lasts a lot longer.
I can tell you this.
Come on and tell me, Daryl.
The odds of Clay eating chicken for lunch
it's pretty good.
is really good.
All right, so we all know that.
I was wondering how long it was going to take him to say something about chicken. It took, 2 minutes?
Yeah, the Colonel Sanders fishing team here.
We've been known to sign up as that, too.
The Colonel Sanders fishing team here.
We did win a King tournament, registered as Colonel Sanders registered as our captain.
That's right. That was Hooked on Miracles.
No, that was that was the Spanish Derby.
That's right.
We only fished the King side.
That's right. That's right. When y'all had a 40.
Yeah. We did.
Y'all weighed a 40 in on that. All right, y'all are the kings of 40s. Let's talk about it. Well, I mean, how do you find these fish? How do you locate? Where do you figure out? I mean, we're getting crazy here, but I want to pick your brains. It's that time of the year. This is the time of the year for 40-pounders. This is the time of the year to catch your bigger king mackerel. I mean, what do you look for? What are you looking for? And we don't want locations. We don't want to give no names out. I'm just talking depth, talking bait. What are some factors that y'all take into account when you're looking to try and catch a big tournament fish?
History.
That's, I was hoping you'd go with that because we made the comment on the boat the other day, Lucas and I did, that king mackerel are a very patternable historical fish in the sense they're almost like speckled trout. They're going to venture into those same areas.
Correct.
At same times of the year, somewhere within a 1 to 2 week window.
I would agree with that. Bait's got to be there, obviously. I mean, that's probably your biggest key. You can go on history all you want. When you get there, if there's nothing there for them to eat, they're not going to be there. So,
well, I asked y'all the other day on the radio, did y'all see any bait? I didn't see any. I wasn't marking anything for bait out there.
It was lit up.
Was it really?
You need to get a new depth finder.
Well, that's crazy. I'll accept that. I'm a little inshore boat, but I got side scan on there. That side scan wasn't showing me nothing either way.
Well, that's why we stayed up there,
Yeah.
We came in. I always try to come in from the, upwind side because, as you obviously go across the area faster downwind. But as you're trolling to get back, you never kind of it's a struggle to get back to where you're fishing. So I always try to get that good long drift through where I'm fishing and then kind of mark. And then when I pick my spot and whatever bait I mark, that's where I'm gonna sit on it all day.
Correct.
And never leave it. I'm not gonna go over here 500 yards and venture out for something else. I'm gonna pick my mark. I'm gonna sit right here all day.
And that we noticed was happening the other day, which a very smart move is when you've got multiple boats around you that are all going to try and come up somewhat troll in the same area. I mean, we know that. But to sit there and I think Mark and I were talking that y'all pretty much just sat in one spot for a while.
Yeah, when it got crazy on Sunday, we never moved. I don't even think the boat got in gear there for a while. Maybe 30 minutes while we were fighting those 6 or 7 fish. But, yeah, you don't have to go you just like Jerry said, you find your spot and you stay on it. If you think that, if you got a good mark there and there's a bunch of bait on, the fish are going to come through it at some point if you're confident enough that they're there.
Yep.
And we were Sunday. We were like, there's a good one here. We know there's a bunch of,
small fish.
20s, and we caught a few, like, really small 8, 10, 12-pounders. But we were like, we felt confident that there was a decent one there. Y'all had obviously missed one.
Yep.
I think you said that other. Y'all caught a pretty good.
So,
fish.
yeah, I mean, this is a question I brought up to Lucas on the boat the other day, and this is one thing that's always, obviously we all know Belky, Bear, Blue Dot, whatever you want to call it. We know that the fish are there, and we know I do know of one tournament in my mind that's been won there, and I know the person that caught the fish. But are there? There's just typically not going to be those bigger fish with all those little fish, is there?
Well, it depends on. Sorry, it depends on what time of year. In the spawn, the small fish are the males, and they come in to breed the fish, and
is that something that happens at Belky Bear? You think is that what
yeah,
brings those fish there? Okay.
There's a lot of big fish get caught at Belky Bear. The problem with it is it gets hammered.
It gets fished a lot. That's
and
correct.
The times that I've done really well in there is in the fall, and that's obviously I was there the day that Jason won the fall brawl there, which is
on a pitch bait on a spinning rod with a tangle in the back of the line.
Yeah, kind of not the place that you would that tournament would ever be won from. But that year was pretty difficult fishing. I think that we had just had a hurricane, kind of ruined up, the frying pan up north of us. Where Southport, where that's where the typical bite is, shallot. Shallot ledges, kind of where that bite goes down back to the river channel. That just down south there, that's where the water line cleaned up, and I think that was pretty early in Jason's career when he probably didn't have a pile of areas to go fish and went with
he went with history
and history, and just where he felt comfortable fishing, and that's the biggest thing to me in king mackerel fishing, and really anything you do in your life. If you're confident in what you're doing,
that's right.
And everybody on the teams, we almost anticipate and feel like we're going to win every time we go fishing. Now, does that happen?
Nope.
Are we let down a whole lot more than we're successful? No doubt.
Absolutely.
You've got to approach it.
Look at Kevin Van Dam, the best bass fisherman of all time. He's lost more than anybody else in bass fishing.
Correct.
And he's the best bass fisherman of all time.
It's hard. It's super, super, super hard to win. So you got to cherish those moments when you do win. But
yeah, there's no doubt you got to cherish those moments. But
it's hard to win.
There's a lot of factors that go into winning. First and foremost, mentally, do you go looking to win or do you go looking to place? And you and I have been texting this morning, and I'm sure that you would say from my text messages that I'm more worried about having a chance to place. But is that your mentality?
Nope.
No, we're buck hunters, man. We're hero or zero. We just fished, qualified for this tournament series that was in Charleston this year. Don't ever fish Charleston. It's a little bit out of my element. I've spent a whole lot more time in North Carolina.
Yep.
We got caught up in I think what he's trying to say is we got caught up in trying to fish for points.
And it changed everything we did. And
it's not who we are.
That happened in every tournament.
Correct.
That's what you're saying. Yeah, every tournament leading up.
So in the Miracles tournament, we were trying to catch a 25 to 28 pound fish
instead of fishing the way you normally do.
Instead of going out and trying to catch a 40 to win it.
That's right. That's a good point. That's a good point. I never thought about that.
And it's not the way we fish. I mean, it's kind of like this. If you go to areas that that have fish and you're confident where you're going, it's hard to mentally accept this, but you probably going to catch fish anyway.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But when we pulled into the tide line on every fish that we weighed in this thing and catch 5 fish in, less than an hour, we would leave. And honestly, a lot of bigger fish got caught there, but nothing to win a king mackerel tournament with.
Right.
No fish that came off the tide line this year won a tournament.
But
that's rare. That's rare, isn't it?
No. I would say there's obviously been some tournaments won on the tide line in Georgetown, maybe a few.
Right.
But the vast majority of the fish are not going to be won, or tournaments are not going to be won from the Georgetown tide line.
Somewhere within 5 miles or somewhere within 35 miles of there. Those are good spots.
Right. But the tide line itself does not produce winners on a normal basis. History will, if you fish off of history, you will know that. I mean,
right.
That is not the place you go to win a tournament.
It's a great place to catch 20 to 30 pound fish.
Yeah, and an occasional 35.
Well, this time of the year, though, one thing, and we want to talk. I do want to talk a little bit more about rigs and bait and everything else. But this time of the year is a great time. We saw y'all, myself, and another boat saw fish skying on the beach. Saw fish on the beach with the bait, But this is the time of year where a guy who might not ever kingfish can go, and you don't need a lot. I mean, you get a lever drag or a level wine, pin 320 GT,
Yeah.
put it on.
Big fish caught on spinning reels. I mean,
Exactly. But you can do it right now and do it close to the beach. You
Yeah,
can go in a
absolutely.
small boat. That's not important. But I think what's important is obviously knowing locations. I think in tournament fishing, the most important part is intel. Do I get any arguments out of that?
No.
No, you're not.
Do I get any arguments out of that?
No.
no, I mean,
Intel always helps
it does. I mean, and
if you can trust.
Can it sometimes screw you?
well, so that's what we really started doing, you know, is we started fishing together in 15 or 14.
2014.
You know, I always fish with my buddy back home, Jeff.
Jeff.
And,
Yep.
you know, he didn't live here. I didn't have a whole lot of help. But I actually had a little bit more contacts than I do today. We kind of just said, listen, man, we know enough about what we're doing. We've all spent enough time on the water. Let's just do what we do.
Yeah.
And go out there and have confidence in what we're doing. I don't have to fish against anybody. I don't owe anybody anything. You know,
Right. Well, yeah.
there is a few people that, you know, we talk to. I get most of my information from commercial guys that, you know, I respect them. I won't get caught fishing their numbers.
Well, that's why I say yes to Intel. It's not always
Yep.
tournament.
Right.
fishermen Intel.
No. That's what I was thinking. You know, like, I mean, hey, we all love Captain Robert Strickland.
Yeah,
He's a great source.
that's right.
I went to him before we went fishing the other day to make a decision with whether I went to 120 foot or whether I stayed in closer to the beach and stuff. But I do know that the Intel chain has grown, and there are some that use it and don't share. And I know I'm not going to obviously say any names, but my problem with Intel through the years, I mean, from doing charters and everything else, is I like to incorporate my Intel with people that also are going to, I mean, like you said,
Reciprocate.
that reciprocate and reciprocate the truth.
Well, so yeah, that's
I don't want to hear,
Well,
you
that's
know,
where it's
That's
really
where it's-
got difficult, and that's why we just started doing our own thing. We'll take as much information as we can get from people that we don't owe anything back to, right?
Correct,
Like
that's
Robert. I don't owe Robert anything but friendship. I mean,
Yep.
I take care of Robert in other places in life.
Right.
You know, not sounding.
I know what you're saying,
but, I
yeah.
mean, I just sent him a. You know, I just fixed his air conditioner the other day. Didn't send him a bill. You know what I mean? So, I help Robert. You know, in other ways in life than
Yep.
he helps me. You know, and it's a good friendship. He doesn't want anything back from me, and I don't want anything from him. You know,
Well,
what I mean, it's
in
really
most
friends
recent,
helping friends.
yeah, in most recent, I can go back 1 year and a couple months and talk about Seth, who used to kingfish a lot years ago with his dad.
Right.
Hadn't kingfished much, and all of a sudden he shows up and he goes off Intel, and he went and caught the second place fish in the U.S. Open, won the largest payday ever in the U.S. Open off of second place because the first
cut
place
money.
the first place idiot, and I'm not calling him an idiot because I'm gonna be that guy this weekend. If I fish the fall brawl, I can't afford. I'm not gonna be in everything. I'm fishing in a 23-foot bay boat.
Right.
That's right.
But thankfully,
We've entered tournaments this year where all we did was pay the entry fee.
yep.
And we don't.
But y'all were in some of those tournaments. You were already in above and beyond because you were in the
we were, but
cup.
So we're logistical fishermen, man. I mean, you know how many entry fees that we've paid, and like we wake up and it's blowing 25,
And don't even fish.
We're like, we're done. We're going home. So, I mean, we went to Hilton Head 5 years ago.
in the Miracles
He
tournament.
drives down to meet us down there, and me and Clay said, we out. We
We're not
slept
going.
at 10 o'clock.
I turned around, drove home, went bass fishing. That's a fact. I was in
Well-
Hilton Head for 2 hours.
We all got too much stuff to do. If we're not going to be successful, I'm not going there and beating myself up. I mean,
Or the boat.
have nothing to prove
Right.
to anybody.
That's a fact.
Speaking of the boat, I know y'all want to give a shout out to Field Insurance, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you better give a shout out to them.
Brian Payne and those guys in Brook, they're tremendous to us.
Yeah, Brian's
guys-
good people.
Oh yeah, they've done a lot for us, and it's
That wrap looks good on there, but I told you, Lucas and he agreed with me. It looked like the wrap's changed. Did y'all move the field name somewhere on there?
I don't know, maybe it faded a little bit or something. I don't know.
It looks good. It looks good. It looked like a new wrap. That's why we were asking.
Yeah, no, it's the
same
original
3 years
wrap.
old, three
Yeah,
full
so
seasons.
if you happen to see these guys driving around on the road, you'll see that beautiful yellowfin. Y'all got Mercs on the back of that thing or Yamahas?
Yamaha.
Is there any other way to go?
No.
Thank you. All right, I knew we'd have
No.
I knew we'd all agree on that.
Not as long as you can still get Yamahas. There's
Thank
nowhere else to
you.
go.
I agree. If you're willing to wait, there ain't no doubt about it. Well, I know this weekend's the Fall Brawl. You guys are now sitting. I feel like you're sitting beautiful. I mean, I think y'all do too.
We're in a good spot. I think I figured it up last night. I sat down and it took me a little while, but I figured it out. If you going off of 2 fish, we're sitting in third, I believe. And that could be off a couple spots, but I feel pretty good with the
3 to
1
5.
fish we got.
Right.
Now we need to upgrade to 27, obviously, to win because I think John Boat's got 3 pretty good ones, 36, 35, and a 34.
Okay.
We need
But,
a 41.
Now they're done. They fished their days.
They're done.
We
They're
need a
done.
41 to beat them or 235. So, I mean, that's very realistic.
This time of year, that's 2 baits.
So 141.
So to
141.
explain
Right.
what we're talking about, we're in the Fall Classic.
Thank you.
Or SC Fall Classic,
Right.
which is a month-and-a-half long tournament. You get 2 days to fish. You weigh 2 fish per day. And then they drop your lowest fish.
Yep.
So after our first day of fishing, we have a 37 or 36.9 and a 27.5. And puts
Correct.
us somewhere between 3 and 5
That's
in
64.4
with the 2
pounds.
fish. But our 37 is the biggest fish so far weighed. So we're in a really good spot. We got 1 more day to fish. There's a bunch of boats still got a lot of time to fish too there.
Well,
But we're running out of time.
yeah. So you're going to be out of town this weekend. Would you be fishing the Fall Brawl?
I would fish the Fall Brawl if I was here and the weather was
Nice.
Better.
nice.
So, okay.
I mean, I think that's a fish either Saturday or Sunday. I think you can fish Saturday of what I've seen now, and you know, there's definitely a lot of fish around. I mean, that storm set a lot of stuff back this year.
Sure
if
seems
you
like
just
it.
if you paid attention to literally a lot of things, if you're an outdoorsman, it seems like everything's been running a two weeks behind.
Yep.
You know, and then the water's still extremely warm, guys. I mean, we're less than 2 weeks from November, and the water temperature got up to 77
Yeah,
degrees
it
on the
is.
beach Saturday.
Yep.
I mean, we haven't
warm.
had. Tomorrow we're having our first major cold front.
Yep.
Right, and that's really going to
Help.
help and
All right. So you just answered the next question I had.
school these fish up, make them.
They got to eat.
Yeah, they're going to eat to get fat and to migrate.
That's
you know.
right.
They
All right.
They need it to, the energy.
So the cold front is good. Is it going to be an immediate good, or is it something are we going to look for like a couple days away from it being good?
That's the $1 million question. We know it helps, but how quick does it help?
Right.
So it depends on the wind direction.
Correct, and which is in the
If
favor
it's
of
a
it being really good.
northeast, it's the wave action. Me and Winslow had this conversation last night for.
By the way, folks, Joe Winslow, Team Hooligan. I'm sure Jared would give him the respect that he deserves. I'm sure you learned a lot from him fishing with him through the years. But great fisherman and professor at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah,
Correct.
taking his new crop of students fishing for the first time in the Fall Brawl. He's was in Hawaii last night flying home, so he's probably home now. But we had that, going back to the conversation about
Yep.
the weather, we had this conversation for a while last night, and the wind's going to blow out the northwest, shifting west pretty quick front,
Right.
pretty quick blow, recovers very quickly. Minor disruption to me.
Right.
Okay.
It's not your northeast blowing for 5 days.
Right. This really going to mess things up.
Right.
Yeah. That really messes things up.
When it blows northeast, you go right up in the hook and frying pan, and they're right there. Even in the summertime, when you get those random 2-day northeast winds, and there's some fish around, they'll end up right there at Yo Pond River Channel. It never fails. You can watch it
Every time.
It's literally, and going back to, I think successful king mackerel fishermen pay attention to literally every aspect, from weather to
Not only the weather that day, but the weather the week before.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, there's a lot of different factors you got to play in. Well, I know one thing. Lucas is my partner. I'm not on the boat with him for king mackerel fishing much, but I am his offshore partner. But Man, I tell you, I know he's into intel with you guys and talks with y'all, but man, that kid is hooked, addicted. He does the research. He's doing everything right, and I'm proud of him. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of years that need to be spent out there. You learn a lot, and
he fishes with Robbie in that series. I mean, King Mackerel
Yep.
wise, and Robbie's a heck of
Robbie's a good fisherman.
yep.
Spent a lot of time on the water. I get a lot of information from Robbie, and I share a lot back with him. And we're going to fish the series next year. It's a pro series, and we'll be in contact with those guys.
The Meat Fish Mayhem.
Mhm.
Y'all doing that too?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's great. That's looks like a really good payout. 5 tournaments a year?
It starts in Key West.
It starts in Key West.
Key West.
That might be there might be some strugglers left behind. There might be some strugglers left down on Duval Street. But that is good. That looks like a great tournament series coming up. And hope y'all fish Hooked on Miracles again next year. Love having y'all fish that tournament.
That's the one to fish in Charleston. That's the good one, I think.
Yeah, it's a great.
From what it represents.
That's right.
Sports and from
Sports, yeah.
I remember. I think
That was
Nope.
the first,
second tournament we ever fished in our life was the Hooked on Miracles in 95, 94, 95. We fished at the shoal in an 18.5-foot wahoo.
Yep.
Way to fish in.
That's awesome. So you made the run all the way down.
Yep, sure
Yep.
did. Had to get fuel. But back then you could stop and get fuel. We went in McClellanville and got some fuel and went down on the – I don't know if we cut a check in that one or not, but
I don't think we did. I think that's when there was
a bunch of fish caught.
we pulled. I remember Rick Ryan. We were catching bait right beside him. He goes, "We're going to the show. Y'all
Ryan.
know where you're going?" And we were like, "Yeah, we know exactly where we're going." And he took off and left us. He was in his 25-foot Mako,
No, he was in the contender then.
whatever. And he started heading south, and we were like, "We can't let him get out of sight." We had no idea where we were going. Don't let him get out of sight. Don't let him get out of sight. And then he was like, "Oh man, he got out of sight. We can't see him." No, wait a minute, I see him. Oh, there's another boat. There's another boat. I think it ended up being like 67 boats in there when we got there.
And half of them were fighting fish.
Half of them are fighting fish.
Oh boy! So you made the right decision.
Oh, I've never seen anything like it.
Again, intel pays off. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's go through real quick. Most fond memory on the water, kingfishing. Jared.
Oh, probably the win in Biloxi in the FLW championship.
Yep. I was gonna say that one's on TV. Y'all need to go watch YouTube and go check that show out on YouTube.
Oh, Daryl, he comes through pretty good with the speech there.
I think that's the last time Jared put on a jersey.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
you look sexy in that Yamaha jersey.
I struggle with the
advertisement on shirts.
Yeah, Daryl is about as simple as they come. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it. Well, I figured that was going to be yours. All right.
I mean, it's tough for me, man, because I've done a lot on the water. I've been fortunate. I've fished marlin tournaments, redfish tournaments, king mackerel tournaments.
Yeah, this doesn't have to just be king.
I know, but probably my most fondest moment was when we won Got 'em On. We had Mark and I had Fisher and my son Reed on the boat, and Reed brought his green bait net that Santa Claus had given him. He'd seen it at Tailwalker Marine. I was working for Tailwalker, and he'd seen it, and he's like, "Dad, I want this net. I said, "That's coming close to Christmas. Just whatever, son." And so I gave him the net for Christmas as a gift from Santa Claus. And he dropped the net out of the boat, and he went to pieces.
Oh, boy.
I can't believe I broke my net.
He's like, "Just turn around."
He's like, I'm like, "We're going a mile and a half, son, per hour. We can't just turn around. We got lines out. There's people fishing around." And we're sitting there talking back and forth. And next thing you know, we hear this.
Hold on. Let's go back.
Wait a minute.
So
you got to be
we had
kidding.
a terrible morning.
We
It was
did.
bad. It was Jared was not a kid fan back then, so he was not real thrilled that we had the two boys on the boat. And this net fell out of the boat, and I'm like, "Oh man!"
I literally looked at him. I said, "Don't worry about it.
We'll probably
I
catch it."
promise you, we'll catch it." And we
And
never looked back.
The long line snagged the damn net.
No way.
I swear,
We did.
snagged the net. We pulled it up, and I don't think Jared saw it right at first. We pulled it up, and he's like, "We caught the net." And I'm like, "Yeah." And Jared's like, God, we can't be that lucky. I said, it's the net right here. He was 30 yards behind the boat. He
That's
goes,
the only net we had.
we're going to catch a
The
50.
other one blew out the boat.
He said, we're going to catch a 50. So then I handed Reed the net back, and he goes and sits up on the console. He's like, I ain't never bringing my net back in the boat.
I swear it was great.
We're just laughing. And I swear 10 minutes later, we caught a 48.75 and won the tournament.
That is awesome. That is awesome. All right, let's go over here to you. And, Mark, I want to say real quick, I'm proud of Fisher. I love following him the last couple of years. I know you've done a great job getting him out there. Now he's participating in all the bass stuff with Salt. He's fishing in the Bass Federation, the state high school league as well.
Yep.
This
is actually his fifth year now. I think he's been doing it since fifth grade. So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, this is his fifth year.
Yep. And you had him started early.
We go all over.
He loves it.
We go to Murray. We go to Wateree. We go to Santee, to Cooper River. I actually turned him loose this weekend for the first time in the river. I said, have at it.
Did he take the bass boat?
No, he took the John boat. he did get back and say, Dad, we need a 40 on the John boat. 25's not cutting it.
That's awesome. I could expect that out of him.
But he's done well. He's I've tried to keep him humble. He gets so upset when he doesn't do good, and everybody knows fishing.
Yep.
You're not going to catch him every time. It's just
not every time.
Not the way it is. But he's probably got more hardware on the wall from the state tournaments than
a lot of
90% of the kids that fish it. And I keep trying to tell him, I was like, son, you've never won one, but he's got seconds, thirds, a bunch of them. And I'm like, son, you can't. You've had a very fortunate career already.
Yep.
There's a lot of kids that never get in the top 10.
That's right.
That try just as hard, if not harder, than you are. So we've been very fortunate. We've been lucky. But we do play hard. We go a lot. I mean, when we can go, we go.
Well, you are a good bass fisherman as well.
Well, I mean, I've been doing it for a while.
Yep.
I mean, I actually do love bass fishing a lot, too. I don't get to go near as much as I used to.
And I got to admit, Jared over there, that was your big passion when you were younger.
I lived on the lake
bass
in North
fishing.
Carolina, so that's, between that and surf fishing, that's where I cut my teeth in hatters, surf fishing and bass fishing on the lake, striper fishing and,
I remember that first contender. I remember that first contender with them OXSs, OX66s on the back of it.
That was a good motor.
Yeah,
it was one of the best motors.
It's a good thing they don't make them anymore. It costs more oil than it would gas.
We'd all be
deaf. I tell people all the time, if I have to fish in a two-stroke, I quit.
We'd all be deaf.
Oh, God. I know. I
can't listen to it all
And
day.
the smell. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you all for taking the time and enjoying the lunch here. By the way, we were at Pogies Pizza. We had some great pizza and wings. I saw somebody had wings.
Yep.
Great lunch. Stopped by. Great value. Great price. All right, folks. Welcome back. I tell you what. Team Long Run is waiting here, but thank you, Team Keeping It Real, for spending some time with me and sharing a little bit of your experiences over the last, I think they said, 14 years, King Mackerel fishing. But, Stephen, I know King Mackerel fishing is not your favorite thing to do, and nor is it a lot of people's favorite. And I'll tell you, until you listen to that enough, that sound right there is why I enjoy King Mackerel fishing. I'm not going to lie. It is.
It might just be because I'm bad at it. There are certainly different types of fishermen in the world. And King Mackerel fishermen are different.
There we go. Yeah.
King Mackerel fishermen are different, certainly. But, I'm just not that good at it, English. That's the reason why.
No, and you know what? This is going to be another one that I'm going to get slammed for. But when it comes to King Mackerel fishing, I know some charter captains, and I can say this because I know they don't listen, and I know it's going to hurt their feelings. Unfortunately, the only thing they can do is go King Mackerel fishing.
Yeah.
Robbie's shaking his head. I'm not getting you in trouble, buddy. Trust me. But the fact of the matter is they live to go king fishing on their charters. That's all they know how to do.
Yeah.
Drag popsicles, I call it, cigar minnows, behind the boat, and Lord help that the fish are going to be at Belky Bear, because if they're not,
they're in trouble.
They're going to come back.
Right.
They're going to have a shark or two, a couple bluefishes. They're going to take a picture with the sunrise. But that separates real captains from those guys. And I say that it's the truth. Robbie Remsen, Captain Robbie Remsen, there's no doubt you're one of the other guys, because as much as you love king mackerel fishing, I know how much you love everything else. And, king mackerel fishing, again, is perceived to be very simple. Put some baits out, go to a number, and go fishing, and that's it. There's a little bit more involved in that.
Yeah, there's mainly the same boats on the leaderboard in tournaments that you start seeing over and over and over again. So the people that say king mackerel fishing is lucky, it's not.
It's not.
Those guys aren't there. I mean, they're on the leaderboard for a reason. So there's more to it. There's presentation and all that, just like any other kind of fishing.
How about the fact that you last week, okay, you guys, congratulations, best of luck next week. These two will be fishing in the Kingfish Cup Championship out of Ocean Isle Fishing Center. Last year, y'all pulled out a second place finish in that, right?
Yeah.
Second place last year, because y'all were the idiots that went south.
Yeah.
The blast off was hilarious, Stephen. So Brant McMullen runs this event, and he goes. They went live at the blast off. There was 40 boats or 20.
I think there was around 30.
30 or so boats, and they started at Ocean Isle, and all these boats were pointing north to go fishing, and there was this one lone boat. So as they're doing this live video, and everybody takes off, they panned around and they said something sarcastic about the one boat going south. And it was these guys.
Yeah, and Brant McMullen, he came up to me last weekend at the awards for the Fall Brawl, and he said, "You going south again?" And I was like, "I think there's going to be a few more going south this year." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll probably be one of them." So,
Can I want to jump right to my question.
Come on.
Okay, because it's been irritating me for years. So as a diver, I always like to go back to that perspective, because I see a lot of kingfish while I'm diving. See a lot of big kingfish, especially diving out at the break when you have a lot of time in the water column. When you
At the where?
At the break. So a little primer. When you dive deep, when you're doing some deep diving, trimix diving or deep diving, you traditionally have very little bottom time, 7-8 minutes of bottom time, and then you've got somewhere in the 30 minutes of ascent time. So you've got a lot of time in the water column to sort of look around you and to pay attention to what's going around you. And so I've seen a lot of big fish out at the break. The problem is, everywhere I see big fish and I go back to try to catch a kingfish there, I end up catching amberjack, sharks, and barracudas. And I can't get through the amberjack, sharks, and barracudas to catch the kingfish that I know are there. Okay, so this is clearly a technique problem for me that I think a kingfisherman could overcome. And maybe it's just a number thing. You got to go through the 100 amberjack to get the one kingfish. But, I mean, what is it? How do you get through the trash fish to get to the kingfish that you know is there on that spot?
well, I think so. The king mackerel that are out on the break, and that's becoming popular now. I mean, people are starting to figure that out, right? But they're feeding on different bait than what you're probably fishing with, right? You're catching pogies on the beach and taking them out to the break. And will it eat a pogie? Yes, absolutely. But what loves pogies is amberjacks.
Yep.
And so it's probably more of a match the hatch thing. Whatever they're feeding on out there, whether it be cigar minnows or whatever, is probably what you need to be fishing with, more or less, or dead bait. Amberjacks typically don't eat dead bait.
Don't touch dead bait.
King mackerel will eat them. It's a different technique than most people do, but I mean, Spanish mackerel. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't pull it around, just let it drift down through the water column. Amberjacks will look at it and shy away, and a king mackerel will eat it.
All right, so we were sponsors of Hooked on Miracles, incredible king tournament out of Charleston. Stephen, you fished it. I looked at your boat. I helped you load the boat. Winston, I helped you put the boat in the water. I saw your rods.
Mm-hmm.
You looked like you were geared up to go to the stream.
Yeah, probably.
Is that where you went? I'm just.
No, I mean, I went.
You went close.
I went. I was in 130 feet, 130 to 110 feet of water most of the day.
All right. I knew you were going deep.
So my strategy to overcome the problem that I've always had was to go with bigger bait, and so I fished with big blue runners. I bought the blue runners from the guy in Florida. I fished with big blue runners and mostly big blue runners all day.
Yep.
And what I produced was bigger amberjack. So we caught two amberjack that were close to 100. And I mean, just like, I knew it from the time that they bit that there was a giant amberjack.
Yep.
And there's nothing. And then shark, we caught 2 or 3 bull sharks that were 200 or 300 pounds apiece. And I just I don't know what I know there's I've seen them at this spot. I know there's big kingfish there, but I can't get past the amberjack.
Yeah, another deal with that too is the king mackerel feed when they want to, and that's not all the time. They're like us. The amberjacks literally feed all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, they're eating constantly.
So,
Well, this one right here, and I fished the South Carolina Fall Classic, Lucas Williams, and we got hit by the amberjacks on the spot where we were fishing the other day, and he's under the same philosophy I am. If you know the difference, I mean, let's talk about. I mean,
as far as the bite,
law of averages, you know the difference of what's on that rod.
Oh yeah.
So we started. We popped it off. We had a double that we felt strongly was a double of amberjacks. We popped them both off. Fast forward to. Is it fast forwarding? Yes, fast forward to the next 3 days later, I fished with another team on their day in the Fall Classic. We went a little bit deeper water where there are, which by the way, y'all, I've heard that the amberjack at that spot where we were, according to the Gallops, are some of the biggest amberjacks that they've caught anywhere where we were the other day. So, but we went a little bit deeper, and sure enough, amberjack right off the bat. Amberjack right off the bat, fought it. 25 minutes, finally got it to the boat. Like 10 minutes later, another bite on the downrigger, and sure enough, just that boom, boom, and then stop. Boom, boom. I'm like, it's an amberjack. But let's just see. Well, it ended up being our biggest kingfish. So it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, especially when you're fishing for that much money, I like the old theory of let me just get my eyes on it just once and then pop it off. And then, of course, the bull shark that we fought, that was with you. We fought that bull shark. I mean, that thing, there's too many bull sharks out there, but that was last week's episode. We'll talk about that again. But
too many amberjack.
There's too many amberjacks, too.
We're catching, when we're deep dropping in 600-700 feet of water, we're catching amberjacks now. On the bottom, you can see nothing in the water column on the bottom machine. You see a little blow up in 600 feet of water. You drop a deep squid rig with light on it. It hits the bottom, bump, hit the electric reel. You're fighting what you think's a big snowy, and here comes and none of them are big down there. I don't know why, but they're all 15, 20-pound AJs.
Yeah, and they're in there in 50 foot of water as well. So they're in 500, and they're in they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
So if you're in an area where you know kingfish are, do you change your terminal tackle? Do you find that and I mean I really want to go into rigs and stuff later on too, but do you I mean if you're in an area like Stephen, he knows. I mean the man dives, so he obviously knows what's there.
Yeah.
Maybe not at that point; those kingfish aren't there, but for some reason you feel like they're there. You're in a major, and we'll talk about the importance of that later. You're in a major, and you know the bait's there. You're marking it. The fish are there. Do you maybe go from, say, I don't know, what 40-something pound down to 32? Try something smaller. You got some smaller rigs, or try something different?
My rigs are the same all the time. The only reason I would change a rig is for the bait size.
Right.
I mean, I use bigger hooks for bigger bait. It's just you use a smaller hook and a big bait, you have a less. Those fish are just swiping at it and hitting it so fast. Yep. You have a less chance of actually hooking the fish with light drag and all that stuff. So you want to go up a size on hooks for, say, you're fishing with big blue runners or bluefish. I fish with number 2s. Yep. Or even you catch those real big pogies, 10, 11, 12 inches, stuff like that. I fish with number 2s on them. But if I'm fishing with smaller pogies like 5, 6 inches, 7 inches, I fish number 4s. Smaller live cigar minnows, I fish number 6s.
You do fish 6s? I was going. I do a lot of 6s. I don't spend the time that you do catching bait. So I normally end up with pogies or whatever else I can get my hands on. So I do use a lot of 6s.
My theory on a king mackerel, and I may be wrong, but I think that if you have the right bait and that fish is ready to feed, he's going to hit it. I don't care if you got a 150-pound wire on there.
Right.
I truly believe that. Now, if I'm fishing, I fish pretty heavier than most people, and I'm fishing in a crowd of boats, I'll get less bites. I've seen it. I know that for a fact. But if they bite
it's going to be the man.
If they bite my rig, we're going to catch them.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I go about it.
Well, you mentioned dead bait earlier. Do you find yourself? Do you bring dead bait? No, I mean, no matter what, whether you got live bait pinned up, do you bring it as an option to,
Not all the time. It depends on where I'm fishing. Like, so in 2 weeks from now, we're going up to, well, we're staying in Morehead City, but we'll be fishing Hatteras for the Cape Lookout Series Championship. And I mean, there's a lot of big fish up there. I mean, a 30 is
small.
It's small.
Yeah.
It's a 2-fish ag tournament. You need 2 50s really to win. Those bigger fish don't want to use all their energy over a small bait. So I'll bring Spanish mackerel and stuff, dead Spanish mackerel for them. And I've caught the biggest fish that I've ever weighed on a dead Spanish mackerel.
Dead Spanish is a great bait. In rigging it, jig head in the nose.
Yeah.
Do you tend to try to break them up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, without breaking the skin.
Right, without breaking the skin because they wash out at that point.
Yeah.
But they do pull pretty good, like even at a slow speed.
Yeah, you got to be patient with them. It'll be frustrating. They look good, and your live baits get hit, but just leave the thing out there. I mean, if the right fish comes across your spread at the right time, I mean, the 53-pounder we caught up there, I think Caleb was on the rod, and he was letting a Spanish back and felt it just in free spool, letting it back. We were about to put it in the clip for the downrigger, and he just thumped it. And Caleb just engaged the reel and came tight on him. But that's the biggest king mackerel we've ever caught in a tournament, and it was on a dead Spanish, so they do work. Absolutely.
That's right. Where do you keep him in the spread? You just said downrigger. So.
I normally fish one on the downrigger, and I normally fish one in like the medium top line, like so the kingfish rod holder's out the side.
Yep.
If I'm fishing Spanish mackerel, that's normally where I put them.
How important in kingfishing do you think it is to have 5 rods out or 6, whatever the max is?
I don't think it's important at all.
Thank you. An argument that I have had countless times.
I fished probably 3 rods more than anybody else.
Lucas is on the same page.
As long as it's about presentation. Like I said earlier, I mean, if you're drifting a live shrimp in a creek, under a cork for trout, it's more about presentation and stuff like that. Or you're working, a matrix shad or whatever for a trout, or whatever your favorite artificial is. It's the same thing for king mackerel fishing. It really is. I mean, I'd rather have 3 baits out there that look good, that are swimming good, or if it's a Spanish or whatever, just making sure he's doing the right thing, than have a whole mess out there. Because I truly believe one bait in your spread, if it looks bad, I think it throws everything off. I really do. I think that if you have one bait out there that's not swimming perfect, that's kind of like half
struggling
on its side, maybe like trying to give up.
Got that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer
I'm
nose
all
going?
about bringing that bait out immediately, and then also I think changing the locations of baits, and we can get into that later. But I think taking your long line and bringing it into your short and taking your prop
and
wash
flipping
bait and
moving them around.
I think that helps trigger bites too. Yeah.
And what speed are you trolling these baits?
As slow as you can, like in and out of gear slow. I don't even keep the motor in gear all the time. So,
okay.
I mean, really, truly, you're just looking. So if you're going into the ocean, it's white capping and whatever else is kind of rough, you probably have to keep one motor in gear.
Oh, that means a king mackerel tournament.
Right.
If it's like that.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
So you're just keeping lines tight, basically.
Right, yeah. And if you're fishing with pogies, it's easy because you can look back and you can see them. If they're on top and their tails are kind of doing this, everything's perfect, right? So if you're going down sea, you might need to be out of gear. The fish we caught last weekend, we would run like a mile back up and then get and go and just drift. We never even used the motors at all.
Right.
And then we'd drift down a mile or two.
And then start back over.
And then we would literally run back up and then start over. And the whole time we were dropping chum and fishing kind of the same line and stuff like that. So all that stuff makes a difference for sure.
When I talk to Keeping It Real, Team Keeping It Real, Lucas and I watched them catch that 36-pounder. And, I mean, there's a lot of, how's it say, sometimes your best offense is a good defense. Mm-hmm. I talked to Jared about it. I mean, they didn't troll. They basically pulled up, Lucas will tell you, they pulled up and got on the number where they knew the fish should be and just started drifting and feeding lines out. How often do you do that? Basically, if you know, say you're at the not-so-secret or the liar's hole or whatever you want to call it, and you're out there and you know this one ledge is going to hold some good fish, you get out there and just concentrate on that one spot, whether you put 2 lines or 3 lines out and do a tight circle.
Right, right. So it depends on where you're fishing. Number one, if you're beach fishing, you can throw all that out. You're kind of fishing for a bite here, a bite there. But if you're fishing on a ledge or a smaller bottom area, like Belky Bear, for example, even me charter fishing, I can't tell you how many of the bigger fish that I've caught at that spot have been while we were fighting another fish, and me being the captain and trying to catch as many as possible, I just take a bait and throw it out. And like I got a guy on the bow fighting a fish, and then I've got a bait out the back, and we're just kind of drifting, and they're staying tight, and then that one just rips off. I mean, that happens so much, and it happens a lot in tournament settings too. It really does. So.
Well, you just mentioned something, and you mentioned the spot. Your former partner, you guys started King Mackerel fishing together, Jason Burton.
Yeah.
I don't think you were on the boat with them, but when they caught that winter.
I went to the South Carolina-Tennessee game. That's the only tournament I didn't fish with him that year, and he won.
Priorities, Robbie. Priorities. Nowadays, there's no way you would have given those tickets away to that game. You would not have missed the King Mackerel tournament.
Yeah. It's a little different now for sure.
But they were hung up or tangled up or something, and old boy pitched the bait out while they were drifting. And
there's that dead bait thing again.
Yep.
And that was on a dead cigar minnow. So.
Right place, right time.
Yep.
So a few years ago, I was I better not tell you the exact place, but I was on
You can. Don't worry. Lucas has got his notepad over there.
I was on a wreck off of Cape Romaine that is uncharted. Okay, let's just start like that.
That does not help me.
No, okay. A wreck off Cape Romaine that was uncharted, crystal clear water, and when I came out the back of the boat, there were gags and red snapper, basically right under the boat, up in the water column, all the way from the wreck all the way up into the water, which means it's going to be a good day, right? And below the gags and red snapper, the beeliners had piled up like a big school of beeliners, and they were doing their thing too, doing this tornado thing up underneath the boat, all the way from 100 feet all the way up to probably 40 feet in the water column. And underneath those beeliners were kingfish, and there was actually a wahoo, and there were African pompano, and there were amberjack circling the beeliners, and you'd see the kingfish run in and cut a beeliner every now and then. And just curious if y'all have ever tried beeliners before.
I have fished with them a little bit. I haven't had any success, but I do know they eat them, like just from I've heard stories like that. I think that's probably what those fish on the break are eating, more or less, that you were talking about earlier.
Those long, slim beeliners that come up in the water column.
You can't troll them is the problem. I mean, even like
they're top heavy.
They just spin. They don't swim right, and it's not natural to a king mackerel, so he's not going to bite it. I've tried to fish them on the kite a little bit, and they just kind of sit there and just they don't really. I don't know. They're a hard bait to fish with. Do king mackerel eat them? Yes, absolutely, they do. Anything that's semi-soft and wiggles, a king mackerel will eat.
I wonder if you need to. When you bring them up, there's 2 different kinds of beeliners. You got those ones that've got those big bulging bellies, and they look like they would just be terrible in the water. And then you got those long, slender ones that you see in the water column, or at least I see in the water column. And I feel like if you bridle rig the long, slender ones, you could probably get them to swim. But I don't know. I mean, obviously the ones with big bellies are never going to swim right.
Right.
But I have seen kingfish eating them. So
yeah, they do eat them. Is there a way to fish with them? Probably, yeah.
But it's tough.
I haven't. Yeah.
I tried it the other day. We sabiki'd a couple up, and first off, we were in 120 foot of water, and most of them were dealing with swollen bellies and everything else from coming up through the atmospheric change. But I did have back in Hooked on Miracles. I had the incident where my partner's live well vapor locked, and we lost all of our pogies. We were 42 miles out of Charleston. Got out there. We had 6 pogies, 48 or more pogies alive. We fished those, and then we started sabikiing. We did catch a lot of tomtates, and I know we had 2 bites on tomtates, 2 really good bites on tomtates.
Yeah,
but the catch, the fish that we lost, I'm not going to say it was the winner. I'm just going to say it would have given Freeman a hard run for his money. came on a lizard fish that was probably 2 pounds that we caught out there.
Yeah.
I mean, this son of a gun was that big. Yeah. And it was one of those where I rigged it up because I had to redo a rig because I did not have a rig big enough for it. I had to tie another stinger on. And as I was feeding it back, I put it in the prop wash. I put it short, put it back, and I put it in the rod holder. And I looked back. I was like, dang, it wants to dive. It was diving. Well, I kept pulling it to get it up on top, make sure it was doing good. And I put it back in the rod holder, turned around, and it went off. And I'm telling you, dumped 300. You hear 300 yards. It was 300 yards of line and went in one direction straight offshore. Then, once we started fighting it, it made another run the same distance across the bow of the boat, back the other way. And I said, oh, boys, this is a good one. But pinfish is a bad. I did really good with pinfish years ago on Kings at 3 Mile. It was the only bait I could get. I didn't know how to throw a cast net. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I took some pinfish with me the other day to try them. I just don't think they don't like them. I guess maybe they understand how that friggin' thing works. I mean, those they hurt. I mean, I'm proof.
I've seen a lot of king mackerel caught on pinfish off of the piers, which is where I started king mackerel fishing.
Yep, that's where I wanted to talk to. Where you started.
I've probably seen as many caught on pinfish as any other bait on a pier. So a pinfish under a kite from a boat would be probably ideal. And that
the difference there is the presentation, completely in the presentation.
Right. Yeah, and a pinfish is another one that's hard to troll. I mean, they just kind of, I don't know. I think
my biggest kingfish ever came on a pinfish. Yeah. Trolled him out the back of the boat in Georgetown.
That was the one you caught last year.
I wanted my little boy to catch something, and it was just helicoptering behind the boat, just boop, 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 boop. That's how, well, man, a shark will eat it. And, man, that rod went off, and I didn't even slow down, didn't really turn around, just handed it to him, and he went to tugging on that thing, and it wound up being a 39-pound king mackerel. Hit a helicopter and pinfish way out back, and it made our day.
So they do eat them.
I bet it did. I've seen them eat, like I said, beeliners. I've seen them eat yellowtail.
They love yellowtails.
We've got a bunch of yellowtail. People don't ever fish for them here, but we do have a bunch of yellowtail, especially on the wrecks.
Do we really?
Yeah. We've got a bunch of rainbow runners, and I've seen them eat rainbow runners before.
We caught a couple of those.
Yeah, we've got some big. I've seen rainbow runners, y'all, that are about the length of that table, maybe a little bit shorter than that. But I mean, we've got some rainbow runners that are close to 3.5, 4 feet long here. We've got a lot of people don't know.
If you ever want to see Jay Bache get excited, let him catch a rainbow runner. But finally, he took it home and cooked it and realized that it's not that good.
I wouldn't think that it would be.
No, you're supposed to put it on a cedar plank and
eat the plank,
salt and pepper on it. Yeah,
eat the plank. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've got permit. A lot of people don't know we've got permit. We got giant permit offshore. It's just that nobody ever focuses on them or tries to fish for them.
When did the African? I know we're supposed to be talking kingfish. When did the African pompano show up?
They're here year round.
Are they really?
Yeah, but I'd say they're especially good in the wintertime.
Right, I knew that. Is that because they move inshore? Are they real deep? Or are they?
About the shallowest you'll ever find them is about 100 feet of water, and then you'll find them all the way out to the break. Anything that's got big structure on it. So wrecks are great for African pompano if it's deeper than 100 feet of water, and big live bottom, big ledges, stuff that's got at least 10 foot of relief on it. We're not even connected. How's my phone ringing?
That's crazy.
It is. But yeah, anything that's got big relief.
Well, I'll tell you, what's your biggest king mackerel, Stephen?
I used to fish with a guy that was obsessed with king mackerel. His name was Jim McWhirter. He's I'm sure he's dead now. He was in his 70s when I was a teenager, and he had the original underdog in Merle's Inlet, which was 30. Well, he started out with a 32 Albemarle, then he got a 36 Albemarle, then he went and got the 41 Albemarle.
I remember the name. He lived in Garden City.
He lived right beside me. Yeah,
yeah.
He was my neighbor.
Right.
Yep. The dun digging was on one side of me. Yeah, which ended up being a 65 Hatteras with the mezzanine, and then the underdog was on the other side of me, which is how obviously I ended up in offshore fishing world. So
yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
Pretty good spot to be between.
Yeah, I ended up running boats through all of that for years, and But this guy, Jim McWhorter, was obsessed with kingfish, although he had everything he needed to spend time offshore, at the time catching yellowfin and wahoo and dolphin. He had to catch a kingfish on the way or on the way home. Either way, we were going to stop and catch kingfish. And so I have caught hundreds of them over the years. I don't know how big. I mean, I would guess I've caught one in the 70s probably. He was obsessed with it. But he was not this kind. I don't know if kingfishing has evolved over the last 20 years, but this was not the kind of kingfishing that we did. We trolled small skirts with ballyhoo on wire, and we trolled spoons.
Yeah, drone
Spoons usually on a downrigger, and one of his famous techniques, if you got a bite on a kingfish, but he missed on the drone spoon or something that was down low, he'd just stop the boat. And for about 3 minutes, he'd get a drink. He loved a gin and tonic. He'd have himself a gin and tonic. He'd eat a little snack. He'd let all that bait fall to the bottom, all the way to the bottom. He'd bump it back in gear. And inevitably, we'd end up catching a grouper on the spread, which was fun too. But that was his, anytime he'd get a bite, he'd just stop the boat, let everything go to the bottom. And he'd been kingfishing, I'll tell you quickly. I might have already told you this story at some point in time, but he was a great guy. But he was a little obsessed with rituals, okay?
Uh-oh.
So when we clear the jetties in the morning, it doesn't matter what time, 3 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, he'd stop right outside the jetty rock, and he'd make everybody, he'd already have them prepared in the Wonder Bread bag. He'd make everybody eat a cold king mackerel sandwich on Wonder Bread with mayonnaise. He'd hand them out to everybody on the boat, and you had to eat it. And it had this nasty brown bloodline running down the middle of it.
That's awful.
Oh, it was free. And he'd drink a gin and tonic 4:30 in the morning and eat that cold king mackerel sandwich. He was just obsessed with it.
Ooh.
Anyway.
That one over there's rituals are just crazy.
I learned to hate kingfish.
I mean, shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
Does he do that with you? With
yeah, a little
kingfishing?
bit. He's got.
I know offshore fishing, he's going to show up with
He's gotten away
Lunchables.
With the cocktail, yeah.
He's going to show up with some Capri Suns. He's going to show up with the gummy trolls, the gummy worms. Now those I ain't leaving the dock without them.
Every time.
I'll make sure we ain't leaving the dock without them. But that shrimp cocktail is just the most god awful thing. And here's the deal: it's good to start off with. This dude will set it up on the stern or on the console and just let it sit there. Dude, it might sit there for 3 hours in the sun. I mean, we talking the cocktail sauce cooking, and dude, you'll look over and he'll walk by and take a bite out of it, and I'm like, no way.
So this is like the shrimp cocktail from Costco, the big round one?
The round one.
Yeah.
Dude,
that's horrible.
Just not leave without it.
Down, man.
And I don't think it tastes better anywhere in the world than on the boat.
Yeah, okay.
Have you ever had shrimp cocktail on the boat?
Maybe. I don't know. That's a good
You've
question.
never been on the boat with me.
I need to do this, yeah.
Well, I can say that I never go in the store and buy that ever, right? But he brings it on the boat.
So you eat it too?
And I eat it.
I do too.
Yeah, and it's good on the boat, I think. I mean, it's different for sure.
Right.
But
I do too. Do you have any rituals?
no,
No?
no.
None?
No, Robbie has nothing.
I don't believe
Really?
I don't believe in it. Lucas turns the rods all kinds of crazy ways.
Switches
the rod
them
holes
around.
and all that if we're not getting bit.
I used to cut yellowfin when they were fresh, but we don't have yellowfin. I don't cut blackfin. Some people like blackfin. It's not bad, but I don't cut blackfin on the boat.
Well, I tell you what, Paul Vernon, is that his name? Paul Vernon? Do you know Paul? I think that's it. Paul has been putting some awesome videos up. Have y'all seen on Grand Stream Fishing Reports, all the old videos of the Arthur Smith? And then most recently put a video up of the old offshore tournament. Was it the big car dealership sponsored it? It was out of Marlin Quay.
Oh, I just watched this one the other day.
You should have seen the yellowfin tuna they were pulling off the boats.
Oh, we used to kill them.
It was from the early 90s.
Probably
right?
so, yeah.
And, oh, my God, a yellowfin. It was just grotesque.
That was the dominant fish from the time I started fishing as a kid. That was the dominant fish until 2006 or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad caught a lot of yellowfins. Charles Stone caught a lot of. I mean, he was the man.
Oh, yeah, Charles.
He caught a bunch of yellowfins.
So a typical day at the Georgetown hole in, let's say, 99 would have been 7 or 8 yellowfins, and anywhere from like 35 to 70 pounds, and then you might catch a dolphin. I mean, we're talking about May, 1st of May to 1st of June.
Yep.
You might catch a dolphin if you're lucky, and you might catch a wahoo or two. But, I mean, it's flopped on its head. Now, you can almost never catch a blackfin, almost never. And now it's, 40, 50 dolphin, 18 or 20 blackfin, 0 yellowfin. I wish I could figure that. I mean, we need to do a podcast just on that to try to figure out what happened.
Why they
with
changed the
yellowfin.
pattern.
Yeah.
Who would we talk to? Another person that I'd love to have on, and Lucas and I were talking about this the other day, is I'd love to have Don from the Dolphin. What's the gentleman that started the whole
the tagging
program?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we'll try.
I'd love to get
track
him
him
on
down. We had big eyes too. The big eyes would mix in with the yellowfin. I caught a 110-pound big eye on a TLD 25.
Now they're a bluefin's little brother. Is that basically a smaller version?
Better eating than bluefin.
Okay.
I mean, more like a yellowfin's meat to me. A bluefin's got that real dark meat, not bloody like a blackfin, but real dark. The yellowfin's more of a pink. Mm-hmm. The big eye's more of a pink color. But we used to have a lot of big eyes. When you saw a big, what you thought was a big yellowfin roll to the top, or start making those big circles under the boat, you could just about guarantee it was a big eye. And I caught one year with Judge DeBerry, Stephen DeBerry.
Yep.
And a Judge Fitz McCann. Both of them are judges now, which is kind of funny. Both of us, we all caught this 110-pound yellow big eye on a TLD 25 at the Georgetown hole. Took us 3.5 hours. He wore 3 of us out 3 different times, 9 different runs to the bottom. Swore he was getting eaten by a shark because you could see him sitting in 600 feet of water just doing this. And finally, we got him to the top. 110-pound big eye.
I spoke to somebody last night. You mentioned the TLD. Somebody last night at the fundraiser we did for Tony Carter, and he asked me, I'm going to buy 6 rods for offshore fishing. What do I need to buy? And I said, dude, buy TLDs. I mean, he's got a 25-foot boat. He's not going to go a lot. Don't go spend $1,000 to $1,200, $1,300 more on rod and reel. Buy TLDs. They're great rods.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with them.
No, they're great. I mean, I'd go maybe a little bit bigger than 25s, but they are. Get you a couple 50s. Yeah. Get you some 30s, and you're good to go.
Yeah, they're good. They're absolutely good. The only problem with that is most people that end up with a 25-foot boat say the next year, I'm going to get a 30-foot boat.
Yep.
and then I'm going to get a 32-foot boat.
Don't say anything next. We're stopping at 30.
We're 30.
No, you're not.
No, I don't know if you will or not.
No, you're not. But you are enjoying that 32, aren't you?
Yeah, man, I am.
Team Long Run's 32 yellowfin, newly acquired yellowfin that they're fishing. And from what I heard, Robbie, it actually performed pretty good on that ride to the scales Saturday.
Yeah, it did good. We came out of the water a little bit, but we're not getting wet or anything. So
who's driving, you or him?
I
heard. Yeah.
How you feel like the ride is on that 32? I've only been on a 36.
I don't know. Man, I love it.
You got to think about it now. He's compared it to a 26 Key West that he's had. And we love Key West boats. But the problem is that boat was not made for what we were making.
It's just a different boat.
We were asking way too much out of the Key West. It's not made to go out there and 4-foot seas and run 50 miles an hour to get into the scales on time.
It's just a whole different class of boats. It just is.
All right, Team Long Run, you guys have had a stressful year. Let's call it that, because we had that fish early on in the season in the tournament where y'all had to make that tough decision not to go weigh it. You ended up catching that fish you needed this last weekend to get you qualified for the Cup. Has Kingfishing and tournament fishing grown? What do you think, Robbie? I mean, we're talking about an economy that has seen crazy hectic stuff since COVID. How do you feel Kingfishing, tournament fishing, has done over the last 3 or 4 years? Grown? Increased?
Maybe increased in 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
Increased a little bit, and in 10 or 15 years, it's grown a lot.
Oh, exponentially.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. You guys are going to be fishing a new series next year. We want to talk about that, and then I do want to ask a couple more questions, technical questions. But you're going to be fishing a new series next year. Talk about it.
The Meat Mayhem Pro Series Kingfish Tour. I think we go to Key West first, and then we fish the second tournament out of Charleston, South Carolina, third out of
Southport,
North Carolina, and fourth out of Morehead City.
That's right. That's going to be the the 60-pound.
And then the championships in Biloxi, Mississippi. So that's
Wow, you get to cover some great spots.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I know Key West is a great wintertime kingfishery.
Yeah.
But then you're bringing in Morehead, which is just incredible. What time of the year are you going to Morehead?
Yeah, it's in September, so it's a
little bit different.
It's those fish are kind of transitioning. Then you don't have those crazy leaderboards in September like you're seeing this time of year in October, November. But a 40-something pounder will probably win versus in Morehead in September versus this time of year it's going to take a 60.
Yeah.
So it's not that crazy all-out kingfish bite there this time of year. I really wish that they would move the date on that, but that's not for me to. I'm not the director, so.
The
problem is there's so many tournaments up there.
That's the problem. That's what I was wondering.
And you don't want to step on somebody else's shoes, so I get that.
Yeah. Well, with this, you guys are going to have a cameraman on the boat, correct? If I'm not mistaken, at some point.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And it will be airing on Discovery Channel or one of their channels. Is that correct? Or is it on the Discovery Channel?
It will be on Discovery Channel, yes.
So that's super cool. All right. You guys have any sponsors yet?
No.
not yet, but we are actively looking. We've just started our search.
We need to work on that. You guys need a sponsor. That boat, first off, is beautiful. That white truck will look beautiful.
You see that?
You guys are
see
going to
that hat there in front of you, Lucas?
I see it.
Okay,
That will look great.
Put it on right there, buddy. Put it on. He's got himself a brand new Trilogy Outdoors hat, and I don't know what's it. That looks great.
That's the blue Cryptek.
The blue Cryptek color.
Robbie,
That
grab
logo-
one, whatever you want. Grab one there.
There
That
might be
logo
another.
would look pretty good on the side of the boat too.
Yeah, there might be another. There might be another Cryptek color.
There is
in the
another
back
Cryptek under there.
if you want the offshore fishing version.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of expenses that are involved. Now, you guys have already paid your entries for the year, but the expenses are incredible. Now, here's my thoughts on this because, selling advertising the way I do, the one thing with Kingfishing, as I mentioned, and I wanted, the growth has been exponentially. But with the opportunities through the Discovery Channel and all of that, I mean, it's a perfect scenario for a business that wants to get their name out there in that world. The things that you guys bring to the table, first and foremost, are you're going to be competitive. Secondly, I can't speak enough about how hard the two of y'all work. I mean, Lucas, both of you have very young kids. You both have wives like myself that are professionals. And Robbie chose the charter route to continue that, so he does have an excuse to go fishing. It is his job, but you do spend a lot of time on the water. You do put in the work. So any company out there that gets behind y'all is going to have they can be proud and knowing that you guys are representing them. And another thing that Robbie brings to the table with that is, a big corporation would be crazy that's going to advertise anyway, not to hop on. You can entertain clients. You can entertain employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could take them out fishing. It's a great idea.
We got guys from corporate guys from Food Line going next week. Me, Jimmy, and Caleb are taking, and we take them every year.
Right.
Normally once a year, and then this year they're coming. They went in the spring and they're coming back this fall. So it's like a 3-boat group trip. But we do stuff like that all the time, and I would love and be more.
Well, we're working on it. Lucas and I have already talked, and I think y'all need to go outside the box. I don't think you need to go to Z-Man or any of those companies. I think you need to go outside the box. We've got a couple names. I've already mentioned to one person that you and I talked about already about it, who sounded interested. The other person is going to be his job, and you know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
The other person is going to be his job. Their friendship supersedes anything else. So I think if there's a possibility there, he would probably have the hand there. But I don't think, without a doubt, you guys will have that boat wrapped and ready to go before
I think the
first tournament.
The TV deal opens it up more. So,
It does.
So, think back, the Walmart FLW tour.
Think about how big Kingfishing was then.
Right.
Yep.
Every boat was like
Completely wrapped.
M&Ms. I mean, they look like NASCAR.
There was huge sponsors.
Yeah.
Team Chevy.
Yeah.
That was Mark Pincus, right?
Pincus
It
had
really it looked like NASCAR. I mean, they're all wearing the stuff, and it's just I think that the FLW tour was on TV.
Yep.
And that's that's the big factor in this.
Discovery's gotten big in the fishing lately.
Really big.
They've got 4 or 5 different shows going now.
And how cool for the Meat Mayhem series and that director to get that deal with Discovery Channel. That's just awesome.
Yeah,
and it's great for King Mackerel.
That's
fishing.
smart. It's great for king mackerel fishing. And listen, I mean, all these tournaments like the Kingfish Cup that y'all are in, the opportunities to make money. Lucas was explaining to me how that worked. I mean, y'all paid a substantial entry fee at the beginning of the year. And by the way, folks, don't get excited about the Kingfish Cup. You're on about a 3-year wait list. So,
yeah.
Anyway, you pay that substantial entry, and then you go fish the 4 tournaments, right? 4, and then the championship that are involved anyway. So you enter that tournament. You got a chance to win money in that tournament. Then you're only competing against your Kingfish Cup guys for another chunk of change.
And everybody's in different levels. Like
That's right.
We're across
Y'all are all
the
3.
board.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've already looked at it. Of course, me being how I am, but for the championship that we're about to fish next weekend, there's only like 14 boats that are in all 3 levels. So level 3 pays the most amount of money. It's cost the most to get in.
Right.
But so there's like 30 boats roughly in the championship, and less than half of them are in all the levels. So really, truly, we could finish 7th and make a lot of money. I mean, if boats ahead of you aren't in all 3 levels.
Are all these people that we know?
A lot of them.
You've probably heard of them. If you
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of them. Joe Winslow, is he across the board? I know he's qualified. Kevin Sneed is across the board.
I don't think
Really?
Kevin Sneed made it, but Winslow
didn't make it.
Winslow didn't make it?
No.
Oh, okay. Kevin Sneed's, I would think, would be across the board. Or
He
he
likely
fishes
is.
both, though. He fishes the other one, too, right?
Cape Lookout.
Doesn't he
Yeah.
fish the Cape Lookout as well?
Yeah, and I do that as well too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you fish on that, on another boat.
Fish
for
with
that one.
Derek Blanton
Yeah.
on that one. Yeah.
There's a name, Derek Blanton and Chris Blanton. They're infamous king mackerel fishermen.
I mean, Derek kind of pioneered live bait fishing around here, in my opinion. I mean, he's
Yep.
To my knowledge, he's the first one that caught a pogie and hooked it on a hook. I mean, he's told me all kinds of crazy stories about what he used to fish with back in the 80s and stuff for those things, and catching them in front of Myrtle Beach, like on the beach right there. And he used to put his boat in this little ditch up there by
Swithers.
yeah.
Oh, yes, Withers Swash.
Yeah, he used to like back his boat in there and like cut through the breakers and go king mackerel fishing.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. But yeah, Derek, I've learned a lot from Derek, man. I mean, he's a great fisherman. He's done it longer than anybody I know, and he's pretty good at knowing where they're going to be.
The biggest part of king mackerel fishing, and even the Gallops and Jared agreed, is intel. When do you stop with it? When do you draw the line on the intel?
I'm getting like to the point where I'm not saying anything anymore.
Right, and I say that, and folks, what we're talking about is basically location, tackle, bait, whatever it is. The question. I mean, Steven calls me and says, "Hey, what are you going to do tomorrow? I'm fishing too. This is what I did." Or calls me next week because he went out and saw a 50-pounder while he was diving and said, "Hey, we got a king tournament this week. You need to go."
I talked to Jared for sure. I almost feel like I owe it to. So real fast, whenever it was like 2013, 14, something like that. Whenever I was starting to get into king mackerel fishing and tournament fishing, and back then the SK was the deal to do. I called Jared and we knew each other a little bit, but I had to get his phone number from someone else, and I called him. And I said, "Hey man, like if you have time, like I look up to you and all that. If you have time, can you just I'm going to fish the SK for points this season, and can you give me a few pointers?" Jared was an open book. Like, he didn't have to do all that. He told me, moon phase, time of year, why the fish should be here.
You know why?
Water clarity.
Somebody did that for him.
Right, and all, water clarity and all that stuff. And at the end of the conversation, little did Jared know, I had a notebook out, and I was writing it down as fast as I could and all that stuff. And I still look back to that. I still have it, look back to it now. So me and Jared have had that relationship ever since I started king mackerel fishing anyway. So if he calls me with anything, I tell him. But the thing is, too, with Jared, he's never, ever told anyone else what I've told him. And it goes back and forth.
Yep.
So, like, and it'd be easy for me to see it, right? So if I went to a spot and then there was somebody else there and I just told Jared and no one else.
Yep.
If there's another boat there that shouldn't be there, Jared told. That's never happened, and I don't think it ever will happen. So we have a great relationship as far as where they're going to be and why go here versus there or whatever else.
My problem is that everybody knows I talk, so I'm going to get very limited intel. I mean, it's the truth. I agree. But I will say this much: I was getting beat up. I was in a bad situation because of y'all. Because somebody that was trying to qualify for the Kingfish Cup needed what they thought was a certain size fish, and they happened to be a client. So they were hitting me up wanting to know where y'all were, and I was like, dude, I don't know.
Yeah.
All I kept saying is he kept bringing up Charlie's Hole, and I kept saying, sounds like a great idea.
Right.
And it turned out that's where he should have been. I mean,
yeah, and that's another one that I'm a little sick of too. I mean, not anything that you did, but
Right.
like that's a spot out of Merle's Inlet.
I've been fishing the 22-mile ledge, not Charlie's.
Right,
it's
right.
the 22-mile ledge in my book. I've been fishing it for a long time, but
I mean,
not for kings. I go there grouper fishing
exactly,
right now.
Exactly,
Right now,
and nobody ever knew that they were really there. So a lot of the old guys, like like Derek Blanton,
David Perry.
David Perry fishes it religiously. Terry Grantham. Terry has won a lot of money at that spot. And it's just weird that it's getting out now. Like the fall brawl winner came from there. I mean, it's just and the person that caught it's never been there before in his life.
Second biggest fish of the Fall Classic came. Third biggest fish from the Fall Classic came from there.
Yeah, and Lucas has fished it. Over the years. I fish it a bunch, and I'm always the only boat there. But it's kind of going downhill.
People poach spots like crazy. I mean, and it's gotten worse and worse over the years, especially like when radar started getting better and better, and people could radar you. You know, but I mean, when we were diving, whatever day that was, Tuesday, we had a guy come, way off course. I could see him. Let's say he was traveling 100 degrees. He turned 170 degrees, came straight to us. We had a buoy out, a drop line buoy. He came straight to us. He saw a lift bag with fish on it, turned right to our buoy, which was 60 yards away from us, maybe 6 or 7 knots, traveled right past that buoy, could have hit the buoy, saw him punching in on his machine, and then took off. And I'm like, what the frick is this? What is this?
I'm just going to say this much. If I see a diver down flag, I'm probably going to sneak and get close. Just because.
Man, I tell you.
I know one thing. When it comes to you and Kent Rogerson, when it comes to the two of y'all, Kent has given me a couple bottom numbers through the years. And I know your numbers are going to be good. I mean, when you're, we've talked about it on the podcast before. What we read on our sonar is far different than what there actually is down there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what we might appear to be just a beautiful bottom, it might be even that much better.
Right.
So I'm gonna pay attention to what y'all see, and I would probably do the same thing, Shanghai your spot. But
by the way, there's big cigar minnows in like 105 feet of water right now, but they're in the bottom third of the lower of the water column.
water column.
Yeah, big cigar minnows. I mean, like.
Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, thermocline, is there? How could you feel a big temperature change?
There's a little bit of green water on top, and then it turns blue underneath it. Like once you get 20 to 30 feet underneath the top piece of water, it's blue underneath all the way to the bottom.
Well, somebody wants to get in touch with you, listen to the podcast, and they're like, hey, I want to get in touch with those guys and get on their boat and talk to them. How do they get in touch with you? Best way?
Yeah, just through phone, 843-340-0779 is my phone number.
You have a website for your charter business?
I do not. I just have Instagram, and that's it. It's
That's right. You're another non-social media person.
I'm not a big social media guy. Never have been.
Good for you.
You and Steven both.
I hate it.
Yeah, I have Instagram, and that's it. And I book a lot of trips through like Instagram Messenger and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm to the point now in my charter business where I just I do a lot of repeats and stuff. And I mean, I love new clients and kids and all that stuff on the boat. But a lot of repeats right now. So.
That works perfect. Well, listen, best of luck to y'all next weekend.
Good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Best of luck to y'all next weekend. And, Stephen, best of luck to you, my friend. So I'm hoping that our next podcast is talking about, and we'll actually have some video of, hopefully, your harvesting of a big muley.
Yeah. I'm going to be hunting mule deer November 1st through the 5th and going back to the same spot we were elk hunting last week. And we'll see.
Have you been working out? Because I've been watching a lot of Outdoor Channel right now, and you guys go through a lot of. I mean, heck, with the elk.
Dude, I almost snuck in. I got up this morning and I almost snuck in a run between getting the kids ready and y'all coming, and because of that. Because last week I was sucking wind a little bit. So I'm going to get in the gym here in just a few minutes.
Well, we can't wait. And thank you guys, Team Long Run, for hanging out with us. And folks, listen, if you like the show today, make sure you click and subscribe and share it with all your friends, please, and send them to TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com to check out all our other brands, Trilogy Outdoors Magazine and the Southern English Radio Show every Saturday morning on the Gator 107.9 or the iHeartMedia. And so, hey, we're going to get out of here. It's been a great show today talking king mackerel fishing. And come back next week. You know what's always going to be right here. We're going to discuss fins, fur, and feathers. That's Trilogy Outdoors.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.